okay? I'm here. It's been a while since you've had one of those nightmares. Tell me, what was it about?
It's only fragments. Nothing's clear. You've been fighting the Harkonnens for decades.
Look!
My family's been fighting them for centuries.
Your blood comes from dukes and great houses. Here, we're equal. What we do for the benefit of all.
I'd very much like to be equal to you.
Maybe I'll show you the way.
Deal with this prophet. Send assassins.
Fade Rother. He's psychotic.
I see possible futures all at once. And in so many futures, our enemies prevail. But I do see a way. There is a narrow way through. Is to you. Do you believe me?
This is a form of power that our world has not yet seen. The ultimate power.
I want you to know I will love you as long as I breathe.
You will never lose me as long as you stay who you are.
Consider what you're about to do, Paul Atreides.
Silence!
Prophecy is how they enslave us! You are not prepared for what is to come.
Welcome back to another episode of the Real Table Podcast with your host, Michael Carter, and I'm joined with Jared Freeman. Jared, what's up, man?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Trying to fluctuate with this weather, but we're doing good.
I know, it's weird. Like here in Ohio, it was 70 degrees yesterday. Today's Wednesday. We're filming this on Wednesday, but it was 70 degrees on Tuesday. And now today, it like dropped completely to like the 20s.
You gotta have like every season's worth of clothes ready and available in Ohio.
Yeah.
You never know what you gotta pull out of the closet.
And the wind chill is crazy.
Yep.
Like the wind is just like, I was out for 2 seconds. I went to the car and then I came back and like my face was going numb because that's how cold it was. I was like, man, I'm not leaving the house no more today. I refuse.
Yep.
I refuse.
Smart man.
Yep.
But other than that, I'm doing pretty good. Just
Good.
working and playing some tennis as much as possible.
There you go.
Watching movies.
Do you play tennis indoors or outdoors?
In the summer, of course, it's outdoors, but throughout the winter seasons, it's all indoors. So I'm a member at a club,
Okay.
and they do a Friday evening event every week. So I'll do that usually a couple times a month.
Nice.
Yep.
Sweet dude. Jared was on last week. Josiah also was on. But Josiah didn't get a chance to experience what we just experienced this past Sunday. Me and him chatted just for a little bit. But we were on last week and we were talking about Dune Part 1. And, you know, we went into a whole sci-fi kind of realm type thing. And now we're back, me and you, and we're talking Dune Part 2.
Yep.
That's actually how I like when the movie ended. I kind of I
You're
was
just kind of like, wow.
I was just sitting there because I think you asked me, you're like, "Hey, you okay? You
Yeah, I
okay?"
said, "Are you okay? You doing all right over there?"
I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, I'm good."
It's one of those
Dude,
movies, though.
yeah, dude. Dune Part 2. I realized also I was pronouncing the director's name wrong. His name is Denis.
Denis, yeah,
I
that's the
think because
silent.
it's Canadian, or yeah, he's Canadian, but I
Uh,
think he's from like
let's
the
see what he
French part
is.
of Canada. I think he's from the French part of
Yep,
Canada.
yep,
Yeah. So it's
Canadian, yeah.
Denis. Um, and this is Denis Villeneuve. Villeneuve, I think Villeneuve, something like that. But he's got some
Villanueva.
French. Villanueva. Okay, he's got some
Mhm.
French in him. But this, uh, like when I'm sitting thinking about this movie, I think even early on in Denis' career, because I think he has a long career ahead of him after this movie.
Mhm.
How impressive of a director he is to capture this story. Two
Mhm.
parts, one book though, two parts, and the nuance and the layers that this movie had. It's just remarkable to think that it's like, wow, like he cared about this product. And I think it's, I know the year is still early and there will be plenty more movies to shock the world, but this might be that movie where early on I'm like, man, like even looking to the Oscars next year, I'm like, man, this movie could do a lot of damage next year.
Yep.
Jared, go ahead. Early thoughts. Good. Come on.
Well, just jumping from the Oscar conversation, it is early, but I think for sure it'll take all of the technical awards because visually it was stunning. Even if
Mm,
you are not really into the plot at all, or you're
yes.
a little bit behind in terms of you haven't read the novel or it's just not your thing in terms of sci-fi, you can sit there and have an amazing time just watching the visuals, watching the entertainment value that the whole world building that he's able to do
Yep.
provides you. So that in itself, and I didn't think part one could be topped in terms of visuals, but this one definitely topped it in terms of visuals, and I think topped it in terms of the movie in general. And that's going to happen with the way that the Dune plot goes anyway. The first half of the book, which what Denis did in part one, is kind of character building and world development, and then it starts to kick into really action items in the second half of the book, which is what this movie covered. So that was great. The performances, I
Wow.
two really specific performances that impressed me.
Wow.
Not
Yeah.
cliche, not surprising, but Timothée Chalamet, he brought an intimidating factor that I have not seen from him in his roles. He
Yep.
kind of plays a little bit of the kind of young guy that's not super intimidating physically, and I think of his role in Little Women.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of his role type of role. And that's kind of what Paul is in the beginning. He's a little bit, he's a prince. He's kind of figuring himself out. But then in the second half, I mean, he's a revolutionary leader. You just think of a revolutionary leader and what they have to bring to portray that and to lead a people, especially a religious leader that he
Yeah.
is kind of tabbed as. That's a whole nother level that you have to bring. And he brought that intimidation and that physicality out of him that I have not seen him do before. So that was great. And then my MVP of the whole movie is Austin Butler. In terms of
Mm,
performance, Austin Butler is Fade Rutha Harkonnen was the best performance of the movie, in my opinion. I think it'll end up being one of the better performances of the year. Austin Butler is the next big thing in terms of male actors. He's definitely, and really everybody. The great thing about this movie is everybody you're looking at, the young actors, is the next generation of Hollywood stars.
yes.
It's like you've got
Yes.
him, you've got Timothée Chalamet, you've got Zendaya, Florence Pugh, Austin. I said Austin Butler already. They're the people. They're the next people in Hollywood that are like at the top of their game and are gonna carry the big A-list movies for a long time. So it's just so amazing that he was able to get those people. But that's my MVP of the movie. I think we got to see again how the movies go throughout the year, but I think he should get a Best Supporting Actor nomination, Austin Butler. I'm not sure if anybody else will get one, just because sci-fi historically is hard to get those actor and actress nominations.
Yep.
It's just the Academy typically doesn't reward sci-fi performances with that, and it can be hard sometimes because some sci-fi movies can be a little cheesy. But this one was dramatic. It was raw in terms of the performances in there, and I think if there's any sci-fi movie that can break the mold from that standpoint, it'll be this one.
Yeah, I I'm already like, I'm writing my review still, and like when I like the opening paragraph is kind of thinking about movies that resemble this. There's an epicness to this movie, and it's like the Lord of the Rings, or like the vastness of the lore, the Harry Potter films, like even like some of like the Avenger films. It's like the scale is big, and Dune is like it's so big. Like you feel like you're really in this other planet and this other world. And so the way that they were able to bring that to life is just so remarkable. And I agree. Austin Butler, I think he's my guy too, from like the best performance in the movie. He was the best. Like, I don't think, I mean,
and not by a long shot. I mean, everybody was amazing.
I'm about to say everybody was pretty good. Everybody's pretty good, but he had that extra flair where it wasn't like he was trying too hard. It was like, oh, he was this character. He was this guy. He was crazy. He was unhinged. So him and Timothée, they brought it. I think I've always thought Timothée was great in what he's done. I thought he's always been cool and he's always been good. But like this one, it was just like, wow. I think I've also seen a lot of comments on that level where everybody's like, oh, okay, I was unfamiliar with your game. I didn't realize like you could act on that level. And obviously beyond this, he is a good actor, but I think this is like, I'm even looking at his discography. I'm not discography, his filmography. And I'm like, man, I think this is one of those roles where I think he leveled it up. He took it.
For sure.
I mean, obviously he takes every role seriously, but like this role was just, it was different. Denis brought the best out of Timothée.
He did. Yep, he did. And I think this is only going to elevate his career from here. I was reading a few different articles. Well, I've been reading a lot of articles since I watched it. But a couple of really interesting points. One from Christopher Nolan, just jumping back on the scale of the movie that we touched on earlier. Christopher Nolan actually said he compares this movie to the effect that Empire Strikes Back had as a sequel, which is really a huge thing to say, because Empire is most often, I mean, there's debates, but it's often regarded as the best Star Wars movie, and it's often regarded as one of the better sequels of all time, because typically sequels don't do well. Sequels typically are, just traditionally in movie history, they're not nearly as good, and a lot of times they do flop. The way that this was set up, it was kind of one movie just divided in two, so it's a little bit different in that aspect. It's not like it is a continuation of the story, but it's not a whole separate plot line. It's a continuation of a plot line. But he compared, Christopher Nolan compared it to Empire, which is fantastic. And then Austin Butler and Timothée Chalamet, I was watching some group interviews with them on a few different networks and or publications, and their first day meeting each other was actually that fight scene at the end.
Wow. I always forget they film out of order.
So,
and that was one of the most impressive parts of the movie.
Yes. So it's kind of, I understand why their performances were so good from that aspect, because it's like the first scene that they had to do, they had to bring it, and they had to lock into each other. And I think that was smart for them to do and kind of work backwards in terms of filming.
Yeah.
is they got that scene out of the way first and had to bring the intensity, and I think that helped them understand where they have to build to. You know what I
Yep.
mean? I think that's why I hear that happen a lot of times, and when I listen to directors, they film that way. I think for that reason, they film a lot of those like ending scenes first, just to show hey, this is where we need to get to from the actor's perspective. So but every director's different, but I thought that was an interesting point that I heard from them, that they actually filmed that first, and it was a intense fight scene, and that fight scene was really cool. And that's kind of, in terms of the story, that's always what I've been looking forward to the most.
Yeah.
Ever since Dune was announced years ago, the thing I was looking forward to the most was, oh man, how are they going to film that fight scene at the end between Fade and Paul? And they brought it for sure. I mean, it was intense.
Now, as somebody that has seen the original Dune, David Lynch's Dune, like, what are your thoughts? I guess I can say, obviously it's different. Times are different.
Yep.
You know, we get that, but like, how do you feel towards part 2? You know, you said ever since it was announced you were looking forward to this fight. Like, how do you feel towards part 2? And I'd even say you can go as far as to even talk about, how did you feel about even part 1 now? Like, now that you've seen part 1 and part 2, like, how do you think it's lived up to the legacy of, you know, because you know the OG Dune, like you said, has a cult following. It's a cult classic, and like even Frank Herbert's novel is renowned. So like, how do you go into that?
I think that when it's all said and done, this is going to be Dune Part 1 and Part 2, and potentially Dune 3, which I am pretty confident that Denis is going to make that one, which would cover the sequel novel Dune Messiah, and that kind of wraps up Paul's story. He's in other books afterwards, but it does kind of wrap up Paul's main story. So I think he's going to do that. But I think when we look back, and when people look back at this movie, it's in that same area as how we look back at Lord of the Rings, for example, like in terms of how it ages, and that those cast people are those characters. You know, when we talk about Elijah Wood, Sean Astin, Orlando Bloom, they are those characters from Lord of the Rings. I put this movie in the same category, and I think 10 years from now, when I'm watching, it's very rewatchable. I think it's going to end up being a classic, like Lord of the Rings, like Star Wars. But 10 years from now, I'm going to look back or watch stuff that Timothée Chalamet and Austin Butler and all these people are doing, and first thing I'm going to think about is, oh, that's Paul Atreides. Oh, that's Chani. You know, oh, that's Fate. You know, those are the things I'm going to think about. And for a movie to pull that off these days is very, very difficult. So I give it that for sure in terms of legacy. I think it's one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time. And I've seen a lot of sci-fi movies. So for me to say that is high regard, very high regard. You know, there's something with Star Trek that gives me a nostalgia, but I'll be the first to admit that this movie is much more well crafted, and just in terms of a movie itself is better than any of the Star Trek movies. But of course, Star Trek is my first love in terms of sci-fi, so it's just one of those things in terms of nostalgia for me that I love watching. But this movie, just a pure sci-fi classic. Compared to the 1984, it's way better than the 1984. I do like the 1984. I am one of those people. It is a cult classic, like you mentioned, but there are a lot of problems with it. And I think it was just made in a time where you weren't able, with the special effects, to quite capture the world of Dune, because it is so dense. It's much more dense than Star Wars or Star Trek, which is why they were able to succeed with their movies back in that time when the effects weren't there. But Dune is just so deep in terms of the world, all the different terminology and the different spacecraft and the different just languages that are in there, and how Frank Herbert describes the architecture of everything and all of that. It's hard to capture in the 80s. They did their best, I think, that they could do with it. But there's also, performances are very different too. You know, so the Baron is very different. In the first movie, 1984, the Baron is much more kind of extra. He's very,
Over the
loud
top.
and boisterous, over the top. That's a good phrase. Yep.
Hmm.
Whereas in this one, Stellan Skarsgård's performance is much more reserved. It's kind of evil and
Hmm.
genius and calculated. It's much so that's a big difference. Same thing with Fade between Sting, the singer Sting, he played Fade in the original movie, and he's over the top as well, in line with the Baron. And I love, and oddly enough, my favorite parts of both movies are Fade, and the actors that play them. Like my favorite part of the original is Sting, and my favorite part of this one is Austin Butler. So same character, different performances. I was thinking that to myself. I'm like, man, I have the same favorite aspect of both movies, and that's what it is. So that's that. And then one of the more interesting ones that I was reading up on, and actually heard this from Zendaya, was the way that Denis kind of deviated from the books for Chani and her personality and um, her development in the movie. So in the books, she kind of accepts Paul and what he is right from the jump and kind of follows him no
Right.
matter what. There's really not much conflict from her that we see in Dune Part 2, which was beautifully done. Um, and she's fighting the religious prophecy versus who she's falling in love with, and she has a lot of conflict there, and doesn't believe it, doesn't really want to believe it, but sees these signs, and then also is in love with him. But then he kind of like turns the corner on her multiple times, and kind of prioritizes the leadership that he has to provide in taking
Okay.
power over his relationship with Chani. Whereas in the book, in the original movie, she is much more understanding. There's not as much of that conflict, and Zendaya was talking about that, and she appreciated Denis giving her a little bit more complexity with the character than just kind of a follow the leader and this is what it is, and I'm good. I mean, I like it, but I'm following it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is what we see in the movie and what we see kind of in the book. But in the movie, he gave her a little bit more complexity and more conflict, which I think added to the movie and definitely added to the ending when
Oh
he,
yeah.
decides to choose the princess to marry just for power.
Yeah.
And
That's
and
crazy.
you see that, and she walks out, and she's so super upset, and he tells her right before that that phrase, "I'll love you as long as I breathe," and then boom, defeats Fade and asks the princess to marry him.
What a nuts scene.
Nuts! I know,
That
crazy
was a
scene.
crazy
I was
scene.
telling you, I was like, just wait for this last scene.
Dang.
It's really crazy.
She stormed off. I said, "What?"
But those are the big differences between the movie and the 1984 and this one, and I think it does a really, really great job. And I just, we're in a time right now where those dense effects can be created on screen in a really appealing manner, as opposed to the 80s where you look
You
back
just
on
couldn't
it.
do it. Yep.
It hasn't aged super well.
Yep. I think this movie's gonna age so well.
Oh, for sure.
Both of them. They're gonna. And I think what's also interesting is I saw somebody making this comment, and I was like, I felt the same way. Like this, even though it's the same story and like the book, and it's based off of the book, and it's just the second half of the book. Part 1 and part 2 feel like different movies.
They do.
Like completely different movies. And I think that's intentional, obviously. But I'm just like, wow. Like when you look at the first one, it's like, it feels a little darker.
Yep.
A little heavier. And that, it tracks because of everything that happened in part 1. And then part 2 feels like it's lifting. I wouldn't say it's like happier, but it's just lifting to something bigger, right? It's going somewhere. Like the story is just moving to a whole nother destination. And then like you
The
can
main
tell that
difference is constant action. Like the
yes,
part one is slower.
yes,
It's just development, but part
yep.
two is like scene after scene after scene. It's like
It's
action,
going.
action. It's going.
Yep,
You know,
yep,
event happens. Character
yep,
makes a decision. You know, it's going.
yep,
That's how the story unfolds too.
yep. And that's also like it was evident in the score too, like Hans Zimmer, like the
Mm-hmm.
score that I mean, some
Yep.
of the themes from the first one they still carry over in the second. Like he used them quite a bit, but he created whole new themes that felt
Mm-hmm.
very hopeful, like it felt inspired, and I know I use this word a lot, but epic. It felt
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this is like a movie. Like this is a big movie. This is a cinematic adventure or whatever, or however you want to say it. But that was also one of my favorite aspects of the movie is the score too. The score really
Oh yeah,
really brought it to life. Really brought it
you
to
never
life.
go wrong with Hans. So
No.
he's always going to bring it.
Always gonna bring it. Always gonna bring it. Um Also Zendaya and Timothée Chalamet, like their connection on screen.
Great
So
chemistry.
good. So good. Oh man.
Watch out, Tom. No, I'm just kidding.
Look, man.
Just kidding.
Love
She
my
loves
boy Tom. Love my boy Tom, but dang. They have some good chemistry.
They do have
Good
good
chemistry. Which made me mad by how it ended. I'm like, what are you doing, bro? I'm like, Paul, what are you doing? What are you doing, Paul? I don't know what
Well,
you
you
saw.
never know, Dune Messiah.
Exactly.
Dune 3.
I'm excited. I heard I saw something, I can't remember what article it was. I think he's almost done writing it.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think he's almost done.
I mean, I think the studio, because this is going to do amazing at the box office.
Yeah.
They're already projecting up to 80 million opening weekend for this weekend. And I'm
That
going to
is
go see it again
nuts.
this weekend too, so I'll add to that number. Just a little bit. But yeah, it's going to, of course, do really well at the box office. I mean, I think it will get up there. It could cross $1 billion. It could do it.
I think it
I don't know if
might.
it will, but it could. It'll get close.
It's that word of mouth. That's why I think they did like the fan event or the fan screening on Sunday. It's like I think they they want that word of mouth because the first part one didn't perform as well because that was during the COVID era,
Yeah,
and they
it
also
was bad
released it the
timing.
same day on like
It
HBO
still did
Max.
really good though.
Right, it still did pretty good. But I think this one, man, with the word of mouth.
Yep. And I think from that, studio will go ahead and say, okay, yep, do the third one.
Yep.
And I think I read that Denis said that's all he really wants to do is just
Mhm.
those 3 movies.
Yep.
And again, it makes sense because it does wrap up Paul's story. He is. I haven't read the books, but I know he's in the ones after that. But it's just his mains because it kind of follows his children later down the line, years from now, in the later books. But Dune Messiah really wraps up this story, and it does end on a bit of a cliffhanger, right? They're kind of going to war, basically, against the people that are not cool or down with Paul ascending to power.
He's so cool.
How'd you feel about Christopher Walken, by the way?
He was solid.
He didn't have as much as I thought he would have.
No, he didn't. He didn't. He did. He was solid.
Yeah.
He was solid. He wasn't. He didn't. He wasn't like overly expressive or anything like that. I think he did what he was supposed to do, I guess.
Yeah.
But he was fine. Nothing special though,
Yeah. I think my favorite scene was that black and white arena scene when they opened Fade Up as a character. That was a really interesting choice, and that's something they showed in the trailer that I was really looking forward to. And it was really cool because they were black and white, and then they brought in the princess and Lady Fenring was with her.
Yeah.
Another character. And when they started black and white, and then the screen rolled over to them entering their like little pod where they were going to watch the arena and watch the fight. the gladiator fight, kind of very similar to Gladiator, the movie Gladiator, where they're having that Coliseum fight. And then when they screened over to then, the black and white went to color. And then as they're moving to take their seats, it went to back to black and white. That was awesome. And then just seeing
That's
Austin
crazy.
Butler in that role perform in black and white, and he's like in this gladiator setting, killing Atreides people, was really cool. And they were supposed to be poisoned, which two of them were, but one was intentionally not poisoned.
Yep.
By the Baron to test Austin Butler, to test Fade, and he wasn't struggling, but he was definitely like in danger a little bit, and he was not happy, to say the least. But Baron was, he was like,
he said, "On my birthday."
He said, "Happy birthday." And that kind of gives you just the whole vibe of the Harkonnen.
I'm about to say, that's their family.
How ruthless they are.
Ugh, it's a wild family dynamic. Wow.
But that was really good, really well done. It just immediately from the jump established the ruthlessness of Fade in the performance of Austin Butler, and this is a bad dude.
Yep.
And no redeeming qualities, and it's really cool, the whole movie. And as the story itself, how they make him and Paul they're basically foils of each other. They're both these super young, these young, charismatic people that are kind of tabbed to rise to power in different ways. And you see the Reverend Mother kind of says that, like, we've got two different prospects. We're going to see who comes out on top,
Right.
And it's just all the strings that are being pulled behind the scenes. But just that's what I think I like most about the movie, is the foil of them two. And then, of course, it culminates in the end with them fighting each other and one remaining.
Yeah, the political stuff in this movie is nuts, man. It's like, I'm not gonna give it away yet because I want people to go and check it out.
Oh yeah, I might have been giving some spoilers in this podcast. I apologize.
That's okay. But yeah, we didn't give away everything. There's some stuff in there that goes. It's just, it's crazy.
Forgetting that I've reviewed the story beforehand.
Yeah, exactly. So you walked in, you're like, yeah, I know what's happening.
Yep.
I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I'm here.
Well, our friend Spencer was sitting next to me a few times. I think he was getting annoyed with me because I was like, wait till you see what happens. What's about to happen next? I was like, this next part's about to go crazy.
Did he like make a comment or something?
I don't think he made a comment. I did it a few times, but he's like, okay.
What do you think about Rebecca Ferguson?
Oh yes, she was great. She was another one that Denis kind of deviated slightly from the books. He gave her actually more than she gets in the books. In the books, she's a big character, of course, but once the story gets going, she kind of takes a little bit of a back seat to Paul. But in this one, she was really at the forefront of it. She was kind of the one motivating Paul to kind of take on the religious leader and the religious prophecy. And Paul didn't want to do that. He didn't want to believe it. He didn't want to even take that mantle on. He actually denied it in the movie openly. And then it was funny because Stilgar was the guy that, Comedy Relief was like, that's what the Messiah would say, That was a funny part of the movie. There was an audible laugh in the theater when that happened. He got multiple laughs, which is shocking.
He got a lot of laughs.
Javier Bardem, he showed some comedy in there, in that serious role.
Oh, man.
But she was great, and just to that point, she really didn't care whether it was true or not. She was just kind of interested in power. She was, basically telling Paul, this is going to be the best way for us to win. You accept it, and I think to an extent she did believe it. I think she believed that. I'm not sure she believed in the Messiah type prophecy, so to speak. I think she more so, she knows her son. And I think she more so believes in the whole Bene Gesserit plot line where they're trying to find, the one, basically.
Right.
And I think that she believes that her son is that person. I don't know if she believes that he is the Messiah, but I think she, in the story, but I think she believes that he is powerful enough to take on the things that the prophecy is talking about, which is why she motivates him to do all those things and take the water, or the worm's water, basically, and
Yeah.
see the future and all those things, and become what Paul's supposed to become, and that he does in the movie. So, yeah, she was great. And Rebecca Ferguson is always good. She always brings it.
She's always consistent. Consistent. But yeah, she was fantastic in this role.
And I really thought it was interesting how he did the whole relationship between her and Paul's sister. Because
that was fascinating. I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. And in 1984, and I think in the books too, she is actually born. She's born. So they kind of changed that up a little bit.
Interesting. Okay.
In terms of her talking to her from the womb, which was kind of creepy. But it was interesting, and I liked it. I thought it was really cool. It kind of made her a little bit more, it gave her a little bit more weight and more just enticing qualities, I guess. For Lady Jessica, the way that they did that, and then there was the random kind of cameo that I guess I won't reveal, but
I liked the cameo.
I did like the
cameo. It wasn't like it knocked my socks off, but it was like, oh. Mm-hmm. Because now I know this does, like, does his sister have a bigger role down the line too?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
She almost becomes the biggest part, I believe, of Dune Messiah, or she's one of the biggest parts of Dune Messiah, because she's kind of crazy.
See, this is why, like you said, I won't give it away. But what you said about Denis and his casting, and them casting specific people in these roles, it's like seeing that cameo makes me go, yes, it makes sense.
He's got it all planned out. Yep. He's got it all planned out. It may not be greenlit, but he's got everything planned out, and that's just the bottom line with the way that he did these movies. And the best part of these movies is the casting is absolutely perfect. It honestly has done the best casting job. Like, again, it's very similar to Lord of the Rings. I think in terms of casting, like, when I think of the best casting of all time, one of my first things that I go to is Lord of the Rings. And it's the same type of thing here, where it's just line after line, person after person. It's just, you see that from them. You see them as that character so well. And it's just a great ensemble of people. You can't really beat what he was able to bring in terms of stars in Hollywood right now.
No, not right now. Mm-mm. Nope. Fantastic. Dune Part 2. Now, if there's anything like to get people to tune in and to want to go see it, like, why should they go see Dune?
Why should you go see Dune? Well, if you like the novel, you should definitely, or have read the novel, you're definitely going to go see it. So I don't have to convince you. But if you're just somebody that is kind of a casual viewer or doesn't really know much about it, if you love sci-fi, this could be one of the best sci-fi movies you'll ever see. So if you're a sci-fi fan, you should definitely go see it. But if you're just a casual person, you're hearing a lot about it. Maybe you're a fan of Zendaya. Maybe you're a fan of one of the other actors in the movie, and you're like, oh, I don't know much about Dune, and I'm not really much into sci-fi, but I love this actor or actress. The best thing I'll say is you're gonna have a very transferable and entertaining story. It's just a good story. And there's so many different sub-stories that you're going to be drawn to. And so that's why I would go see it, just to see how the story unfolds, because it is a really intriguing one. And I think it's just from a literature standpoint, it's one of the greatest stories ever created. It's well-renowned. So, you have that in place. It's one of the most renowned novels of all time. And that, again, is because of the plot that Frank Herbert created and the characters he created. So you're going to be entertained by those stories, regardless of if you understand the spice and understand Arrakis and all the
Right.
politics at play. You're going to enjoy the story between Paul and Chani. You're going to enjoy the rise and fall of the Harkonnens. You're gonna enjoy those things, and you're gonna be really enticed by how those things play out on this television screen. And then, like I said before, just the visuals. I mean, the visuals alone should bring you to this movie. You won't see any better visuals and combination of CGI and practical effects in any movie. Any movie. This is the best one. You're not going to get it better than this movie. So definitely go see it for that.
Yeah, it might be probably in the last decade, probably the best visually film, like as far as CGI goes.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a breath of fresh air, I tell you. It's a breath of fresh air. It's so good to see the visual effects. It looks so well done. Just right on the money. It's just right on the money. But that's good. I love it. Love it. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think people they need to just go see it. Go check it out. Go watch the first one, part 1. It's on Netflix. Actually, I don't think it's on Netflix anymore. I think they took it off.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, which is smart, because I think they're like, hey, you want to watch it, you got to go pay for it.
It says it's still on Netflix, but
it does.
At least on Google. Maybe Google didn't take it off yet, but I know it's on HBO.
Okay. Yes, it's definitely on Max. So, go watch part 1. And I'm telling you, once you get through part 1, part 2 gets going, and it's great. It's well worth it. Well worth it. Well worth it.
Absolutely.
Well, an awesome conversation on Dune Part 2. I'm excited to just see what everybody thinks down the road. I think by this point, my review should be out on therealtable.com, so go and check that out. Just go check out Dune Part 2. It's the biggest movie of the year so far, so go check it out. Go with somebody, grab some popcorn, and go enjoy a good movie. All right. Jared, thanks for coming on. This is 2 weeks in a row, Jared.
I know,
thanks for coming on. Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Always appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Always. Yeah, always. All right. Well, y'all be safe out here, and we will see you soon for another episode of the Real Table Podcast. Y'all be safe. Peace.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you all again for joining me today on The Real Table. Make sure you follow and share this podcast with anybody that loves movies or somebody that wants to just know more about the movie culture. Thank you so much once again. You can also follow me on Instagram at The Real Table Pod. You can follow me on Twitter at The Real Table. Once again, thank y'all so much. I'll see y'all soon.